Welcome, everybody, to Off the Cuff. I am Adam Banks. Thank you for listening to the show. And it is March Madness Eve. Actually, the playing games have already started. I've watched a couple tonight. An exciting game that was tonight was the Wichita State versus Vandy, and I think it's still going on as we speak. But I think that the winner of that game could possibly go on to play Arizona and upset Arizona. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But yes, March Madness has officially begun, ladies and gentlemen. And we had a good episode last night on the Selection Sunday show. Had a good all-star lineup of people to talk college basketball. But I got a familiar voice joining me via the telephone. And he is the same voice that you hear every single year, because I bring him on every single year. This is his third year doing the March Madness show with me. I call this the pre-March Madness episode because I like to dedicate a whole episode with this guy because I feel like he really knows what he's talking about when it comes to picking college basketball predictions and talking about key games and things like that. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome via the telephone from Topmost, Kentucky, Ron Mullins. Ron, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right. I'm wondering what planet you're on, thinking Vanderbilt could beat Arizona.
I didn't say Vanderbilt was going to beat Arizona. I said the winner of Vanderbilt and Wichita State is going to go on to play Arizona. And I do think that Wichita did. Well, hold on. Did Wichita just lose to Vandy?
Wichita's up 15 with 2:58 to go.
Okay, so Wichita's going to go on, and then Wichita's going to possibly upset Arizona. Do you think that's out of reach?
No, I don't think Wichita upsetting Arizona's out of reach.
No, not at all, because here's what I like about Wichita State in general. I like, one, their coach. I think that Greg Marshall is one of the top coaches in college basketball today. I like his style. I like how he's got a fast pace about him. He keeps his team with high tempo, and he's got a seasoned team this year. What is that guy's name? He's got the Baker guy, and who's the other senior?
Ron Baker and Fred VanVleet.
Yeah, and he's got those two, and he just knows how to motivate his team. I feel like that he knows how to teach his team how to be the best team for the next 40 minutes of a basketball game, and he really turns it on during March Madness.
Yeah, I think he's very similar to Rick Pitino and Tom Izzo, in that he figures out his flaws in the season and don't care to take a loss to get going in March.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, you know, this is my first year ever doing a college basketball bracket without printing the bracket off itself and doing the bracket. I actually have this on my computer, so bear with me if I seem like I'm a little scattered and a little just unorganized, because I'm not the most tech-savvy person, and I'm doing this podcast with the bracket from my computer. But, Ron, have you been, are you completely finished with your bracket, or do you think this is the bracket you're going to turn in, or what are you feeling right now with your bracket? Are you confident?
No, I have no confidence in the only bracket I filled out so far. 0.
But you're ready to rock and roll. Have you joined any bracket pools?
Not yet. No, as much as I love college basketball, my enthusiasm for the brackets is a little down this year. You know, I'm a Louisville fan.
Unfortunately, I know what you're talking about. The Louisville Cardinals, I talked about that a little bit last night. They have their postseason ban, so they were banned from the tournament this year. Now, since we're talking about that, and I have you here on the show, do you think that was a fair postseason ban for the University of Louisville to knock them out of the tournament this year?
Well, no. In a way, I don't think it's fair to Damian Lee and Trey Lewis, but in the end, you got to be punished. I mean, is it going to be fair to Mango Mathiang next year to take his senior year away? I mean, I complained about it a lot, but in the end, I think they made the only call they could make.
Right, and do you think that the punishment ends with this, or do you think that this could bleed over into next season and have another possible post-season ban from the tournament?
Well, the punishment's not over. I mean, that's one thing that's for sure. They got more. Rick Pitino's getting suspended. That's a given. And I think the depends on what all else comes out. As far as right now, the ban will probably be the only postseason ban, but you're probably looking at a suspension to Rick Pitino, anywhere from 9 to possibly 20 games. You could be looking at a reduction of scholarships as it stands right now, but, it's not nowhere near concluded. So.
Right, and a lot of people have been speculating that Rick Pitino's gone after this season. Do you agree with that?
The way it stands right now, no, he'll be back. I mean, once again, it's a fluid situation. Anything can change at any time, and if you followed Rick Pitino, I know for years, and he changes his mind as more than anybody, whoever you come across. As of right now, he'll be back.
Now, as a fan, do you want Pitino to be back, or do you think it's better for the program to move on with somebody with a little bit of a cleaner record?
No, I think as a fan, I want Rick Pitino back. I don't care who Louisville hires, they're going to take a step down in coaching. He's the best of the best, the elite of the elite. There's no coach. The coaches that are in his league are already at Kansas, already at Kentucky, already at North Carolina. They're already at the premier programs. They could hire anybody. They're the most profitable program. His name today, the second most dominant program behind Duke. But the thing remains is there's probably 6 elite jobs, and the other elite coaches are already at those elite jobs. There just ain't nobody out there to get better.
It makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting. College basketball, the whole landscape of college basketball is about to change as far as, the legendary coaches. You're going to have Coach K at Duke. That was an accident, I swear. Coach K at Duke turning 70 here in the next year or two. And I think that after he turns 70, I think he's going to bow out at Duke. So you got Duke possibly opening up. Maybe Louisville opening up, and then you got, Roy Williams. He ain't getting no younger, so you got North Carolina. The Horford out in UCLA. I don't see him keeping his job there long. So, you got a bunch of elite.
I criticized that hard on your show a few years ago, just to point out.
Oh, yeah. Did you predict that on the show?
Yes.
Well,
I criticized them hard and Steve Alford.
Well, and you're absolutely right about that. So, yeah, as far as, the coaching carousel, it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. And, what's interesting about March, this whole tournament, is that this is the time to show up. This is the time to stand out. And especially as a coach, look at the coach from Manhattan, Steve Masiello. Do you remember that little run that he had in the tournament? I don't know if it was so much a run, but he played a really good game against Louisville in the opening game. And I remember just from that one game, he got so much recognition from that he was getting job offers. And he even had a job offer with South Florida, but unfortunately, he got that job offer stripped from him from lying on his resume. But my point that I'm trying to make is making a run in the tournament and actually making smart decisions in the tournament. The tournament is so publicized that if you can do that, you really are helping your career, and you could possibly get a automatic promotion, an automatic shove into a better job just by showing out in the tournament. Do you agree?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But you look at Steve Masiello, he did a phenomenal job with Manhattan. They was on hard times when he got there. He built a really good program. He kept in-city kids home, which wasn't going on. He done a great job. Would have done a much better job in South Florida than Antigua has done, in my opinion. But, sometimes tell the truth on your resume. Antigua
is probably doing the worst job of any first-year coach I've ever in my life encountered, I've ever seen. What is his record? Has he won only 3 or 4 games this year?
Well, I think he's a second-year coach. Yeah, he's a second-year coach.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He left Kentucky last year.
Yeah, his team's not got any better.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. So, who do you think is going to be the coach this year that it's not a big-name coach right now? I'm not talking about a big-name coach, but who do you think that could possibly be that coach to make a run in the tournament this year?
Well, I don't know if he's the coach that makes the run to move up, but I could see Kevin Willard getting some recognition. something he's never done. He took over a really bad situation in Seton Hall. He had some really bad years at Seton Hall. But I think Seton Hall is the most underseeded team in the tournament. Them being a 6 is just ridiculous to me. They beat the 2 seeds 3 times within the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think he's just. And then you got Naona, Tim Clueless. I can't pronounce his last name good, but that's close enough. I think he's done a good job. He's got a couple of sharpshooters, and Naona could easily defeat Iowa State. I could see that happening.
Yeah, so it's going to be.
You got guys now who just now where every program can pay money. So you got guys now who just would rather be happy than jump up to the so-called Power 5 or, I guess still BCS 6 in basketball because of the Big East. You got some guys that just want to stay where they are.
Yeah, you're right. Let's look at our bracket. We have our number 1 seeds, Kansas, North Carolina, UVA, and Oregon. Ryan, what's going to be who's going to be the first number 1 seed to fall?
Oregon.
Why?
One thing, I don't know how they got a 1 seed. I think this is over a 2 seed. But I just think St. Joe's just matches up so well with them. If St. Joe's get by Cincinnati, I think Cincinnati will be a tough matchup for St. Joe's, but not for Oregon, if that makes any sense. I like the way St. Joe's plays. I think they're a terrible, terrible matchup for Oregon. In the front, Oregon likes to play, spread the floor out, 4 guards at times, and go small. They're not going to be able to do that against St. Joe's. St. Joe's spreads the floor themselves, but they keep their 4 and 5 playing. They run fast, they press, they shoot threes, they rebound. They do everything you like in a basketball team. I think they're one of the most underrated teams in the tournament.
Okay, and do you think that this could be the year, the first time in history, that a 16 seed beats a number 1 seed?
Well, I've said all year, if it was going to happen, this was the year to do it. But then we got into the lower conference tournaments, and it seemed like every single 1 seed fell. The teams that had dominated these smaller conferences was getting beat out of their tournaments. I mean, it was up to the point where, you had an 8 seed going in out of one of those smaller ones. One of the 1, 2, and 3 seeds lost out of a smaller one. So really, the really good teams out of the lower conferences was not the ones that get into the NCAA tournament, for the most part.
Right.
I said all year North Florida was going to pull a 15-2 upset. North Florida got hosed by Florida Gulf Coast on their home floor in the semifinals of the Atlantic Sun. Which Florida Gulf Coast looked good tonight. If they was playing anybody but North Carolina, I would say watch out for them.
Who are you absolutely shocked to see in this tournament?
Vanderbilt.
You do not like Vanderbilt. So, I agree with you. I think Vanderbilt is... I'm embarrassed to have them in the SEC. They're probably the worst team in the SEC. They have a terrible coach. Kevin Stallings has been with Vanderbilt for, 16, 17 years and never made it past the Sweet 16. How is he still in Nashville?
I think Vanderbilt's just looking at the situation as, what are we? Where are we? What are we going to get better? I think they're kind of happy with where they are in the basketball landscape, and I guess they just feel that where they are is probably as high as they're ever going to go.
Yeah, they got their little chance. They got their little chance. They got to play Wichita State tonight, but that was cut short. They got to go back to the Music City.
Yeah, that game went final, and the SEC was just a dreadful, dreadful conference this year. I think they're on the uptick. I do think they're on the uptick, and if you'll go back, I've been telling you for years the SEC is bad, and I've never once said that they was on the uptick until now.
Well, I do think that the SEC is an underrated conference. I've always said that. So, we agree to disagree somewhat on that. Like, I do think that this was definitely a down year in the SEC, but what I like is that we actually have 2 teams in the tournament that could potentially be Final Four teams, the University of Kentucky and Texas A&M, which brings me to a question. How far do you have Texas A&M in your bracket?
I got Shaka Smart to stay at him home the second game.
Okay.
I don't think they last very long. I like them, though. I do.
It is. going to be an interesting game. Texas and Texas A&M, an in-state rival.
I think you look back to the SEC, though. I mean, you take Kentucky out of that conference in the last few years, and oh my goodness, it's dreadful. It's horrible.
Looking
at they're the only thing that brings any attention whatsoever to that conference.
Yeah, well, the SEC, they took a big hit with losing Billy Donovan this past year, and but they did gain some new talent. Rick Barnes at Tennessee, I think, has done a fabulous job in the first year that he done all that he could do in his first year. Texas A&M, look at them. I have Texas A&M.
Billy Kennedy's a good coach.
Yeah, and I have Texas A&M in my. I can't even tell if I had them in my Final Four because this computer bracket is so messed up. But it looks like that I do. Yeah, I have Texas A&M beating Duke. Absolutely.
I think Billy Donovan will be back in college.
Yes.
So said then.
Yes, I agree with that. I think that, he can't leave right now. Why would you leave? He's coaching two of the best players in the world, Westbrook and Durant. And he could possibly win both. What's that?
He's going to lose them both within the next 2 years, though.
Right. And then when he does, I think he'll go back to college basketball. And he's going to be one of those names out there where he's only going to go to a bigger school. Oh, and Indiana was a school that's going to be losing a coach soon. Tom Crean, I think that he has had too many chances to do something good with the teams that he's had, and he just cannot get it done. And he has another chance this year, but I just don't see him getting past Kentucky.
I don't know if he'll get past Chattanooga.
Who do you have winning that game, Chattanooga and Indiana?
I have Indiana winning it. I'm just saying Chattanooga could give them problems. But Tom Crean did win the Big Ten this year outright.
He did.
Regular season. It seems like every time he's about ready to be gone, he comes up and does something and keeps him around. And his buyout's so huge, he'll be around another year or so.
Yeah, but the thing about the buyouts is boosters, if they really want you gone, they'll write a check and they'll kick you out the door with her checkbook. I mean, that's just how it is.
We got to look at who they want, so.
Yeah.
And the candidates they want is going to take some money to get. So they can't afford to pay him a huge buyout, then turn around and buy out someone else's huge contract.
I really do hope that Indiana meets up with Kentucky because I do want to see point guard versus point guard. I want to see Tyler Ulis versus Yogi Ferrell. Ron, who do you think is the best point guard in the nation? A lot of people have been saying it's Tyler Ulis. Who do you think it is?
Well, I don't see how you can go with anybody but Tyler Ulis.
Yeah, I mean, he knows the floor. He's just smart. He makes smart plays. I mean, he's just a true college point guard.
Had Tyler Ulis been on the floor against Wisconsin last year, Kentucky would have went 40-0 and won the national title.
But you gotta think about it this. You gotta think about it this way though. Andrew Harrison was the point guard for Kentucky in 2014 and 2015. Say what you want to about him, but he did take Kentucky to back-to-back Final Fours.
Yeah, well, sometimes you go past what someone's done and you realize who the best player on the floor is and who's messing you up.
That's absolutely correct. So I want to ask you, what do you, just looking at your bracket, looking at some key games, what game are you excited to watch? What game are you most excited to watch?
Well, I already said the Texas A&M game. I think it'll be a really good game. They don't play each other anymore now. Texas A&M was voted for the SEC. They played once earlier in the season. Texas A&M picked up the victory. Texas is going to be wanting payback. But, A&M, I could easily see A&M winning that game. I just went with Texas mainly because I think I want to see the Texas-Oklahoma game in the Sweet 16. I know, terrible reason. I also think that Kentucky and North Carolina will be a great game. I mean, that's strength versus weakness, strength versus weakness. North Carolina is dominant inside. I mean, I think the only person, I think Snotty Louisville was probably the only person who's ever helped Bryce Johnson in check this year on the rebounds, and he didn't even do it that great. They just dominate you inside. But they don't have very good guard play. Where Kentucky is different. Kentucky's going to use that game with guard play. North Carolina is going to try to win that game with inside presence. It's going to be a really good contrast.
Yeah, a lot of people say that the winner of the UNC Kentucky game is going to go on to win it all, but we'll see. Ryan, I'd like for you to walk us through your Final Four. Tell us who it is and why you got who you got.
Okay, I got Kansas over Miami in the Elite Eight to come out of the South. I know a lot of people's picking Maryland to go out there and beat Kansas. And by the way, I think California is the second most talented team in the country, but they don't have a coach.
Cuonzo Martin.
Yeah, Cuonzo Martin. Maryland has a good coach, but they got issues. I don't know what it is. I mean, if you watched Maryland recently?
I have watched Maryland. I think that Maryland started off really strong, but what happened to them?
It seems like they have chemistry issues. I don't know if it's Rashid Suleiman is not mixed well with them, or their chemistry is just not where you want it to be. They don't seem to know where each other's at on the floor. They don't seem to be clicking. That's why I can't put Maryland over Kansas.
And it couldn't have come at the worst time. I mean, Maryland was a team that could have made a run, and they still can make a run, but they're going to have a tough time getting by Hawaii.
I tell you what, watch out for San Diego State.
Really?
I mean, if Maryland plays the way they're capable, they're going to win the game. But like we said, something's not right with Maryland.
Something's not.
But we'll go back to my bracket here. I'm just looking at the one I filled out. As I told you, I have zero confidence in. I have Kansas beating Miami there to come out of the South. Down in the West, I have Oklahoma beating St. Joe's in the Elite Eight. And for some reason, I just don't see St. Joe's in the Elite Eight, but that's what I got here in my bracket. So, I have Wilmington beating Duke and Yale over Baylor. That's my problem. That will not happen. But anyway, I have Kansas and Oklahoma on one side of the bracket. On the other side, I think you get a rematch of the ACC championship game. North Carolina and Notre Dame come out of the East with Roy Williams returning to the Final Four. And then down in the Midwest, I think you get for the third year in a row, Tom Izzo up against Virginia. I love Virginia. I think they're the toughest team in the country. And everybody said Michigan State deserves the number one over them. Anybody said that? Well, not everybody said that. I've seen that on message boards and everything. And, get off the basketball message board. You don't know much. I mean, Virginia is the most deserving number one seed other than Kansas. They deserve the number one seed more than North Carolina. And I know that North Carolina won the ACC, but, I mean, you look at Virginia's resume. Oh, my goodness.
They do. They have a good team. They're doing good. Coach Bennett's doing good things down in that Commonwealth.
Yeah, nobody had the wins. They didn't. I mean, it just didn't exist. They deserved that number one seed. I mean, I could get you. Michigan State deserved the one seed, but they didn't deserve it over Virginia. They deserved it over Oregon. But I got Michigan State taking Virginia out for the third straight year.
Okay, so let me get this straight. Your Final Four, you have Kansas, UNC, Michigan State, and Oklahoma.
Yes.
Okay, you and me have identical Final Fours, except I have Texas A&M coming out of the West.
That wouldn't surprise me, because that West is pretty weak. I mean, any team can come out of the West.
Right.
Okay, probably besides Cal, Bakersfield, and whoever plays Oregon. Well, Southern's actually not a bad team. I still don't see Southern as a 16 team in the Final Four, but I don't see anybody can come out of the West.
Why is it that Duke? I mean, okay, it's the thing about Duke. Duke has a bizarre last 5 years of March Madness. They lost to Lehigh in 1 year. They lost to Mercer in another year, and then last year they win the national championship. Why is it that Duke I've not seen Duke in any bracket pool of winning the title. I've not seen them in hardly any Final Fours. Why do you think that is?
I think part of that is Grayson Allen. He's the new Duke player to hate, so to speak, which he is an unlikable guy. I mean, I don't know him personally, but on the court, he's unlikable. And I think Duke just don't have the depth. They're capable of beating anyone on any given night. But, they play 6 guys, basically. If one of those guys get in foul trouble, they're down to 5 guys. They play the 7th here and there, but I just don't think you're going to go to the Final Four with 7 guys. Not the talent, but, you might go to the Final Four with Anthony Davis, Marcus Teague, and Michael Kidd-Gilchrist if you play 7 guys. But you're not going to play Grayson Allen and Brandon Ingram and whatever Sucky Plumlee brothers there now. You notice those Plumlees just keep getting worse. They always have one. They're always worse than the one before them.
Very true. Kansas versus Oklahoma. Who you got?
I got Kansas winning that one again, and I'm kind of skeptical on that just because of the last word there again. It's hard to beat a good team, 3 times in a season.
Okay.
But I got Kansas one on to win.
UNC versus Michigan State.
Look, I thought Michigan State. I tell you what, it kind of be ironic to see Michigan State and Kentucky play because I think Michigan State and Kentucky the last few years have been shoe-ins for the Final Four. Mm-hmm. But once they got there, you could basically say, well, they're not winning the championship. They go to the Final Four and get beat out. So, but I think I think North Carolina beats Michigan State. I think Izzo does it again. He goes to the Final Four. What was it, 2010, 2009? He went to the Final Four. North Carolina just run him off the floor. I see that happening again.
Yeah, it's hard to bet against Izzo in the tournament. So we have a championship game of Michigan State versus Kansas.
North Carolina.
Okay, you have North Carolina. Okay, so you have number 1 seed versus number 1 seed. Who do you have cutting down the nets?
I got Roy Williams getting revenge on his former team, cutting down the nets over.
Okay. That is a matchup. Roy Williams facing off against Kansas, his former employer. That is going to be interesting. And people in Kansas don't like Roy Williams. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
I don't understand why they can hold anything against Roy Williams. He was an assistant under Dean Smith. North Carolina is his home. I just don't get that hatred, that animosity. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think sometimes people just don't like it when someone else leaves you. Dan Dockett, I don't like Dan Dockett, by the way, but he said the other day that no fan base in any sports program, past, present, or future, are obsessed with one individual as Kentucky fans are Rick Pitino. And what Kentucky fans care about Rick Pitino had he not coached at Kentucky? I've never seen anything like it. Matty Baines down there, Louisville Sports Radio, that's all he talks about. He posts things about Rick Pitino. He don't like Rick Pitino. I get he coaches at Louisville, but he didn't leave Kentucky for Louisville. So that goes back to the Kansas, North Carolina. Roy Williams left him.
Right.
I don't get it. Bobby Petrino was always my favorite football coach, so I can't really speak to where that goes. Rick Pitino almost went to Providence a few years ago. I would have probably rooted for Providence when they went and played Louisville. So, I can't speak to where all this comes from. But they just don't like Roy Williams. I guess they feel like he left him. He never won a national title there. He went and won a national title with North Carolina. But 3 years later, Bill Self won a national title with Kansas while beating Roy Williams out of the tournament. I figured that would have solved everything, but it didn't.
It seems like that every year it's the same teams that win it all. In 2012, Kentucky, 2013, Louisville, 2014, you had, was that UConn?
UConn, yes.
Then,
Speaking of UConn,
yeah.
They were on one of those runs again.
Yeah, I tell you, man, UConn is that school kills me because in the last 10 years, UConn's won more than anybody.
Oh, UConn's one of the, when you talk of marquee programs, you talk Kentucky, you talk of Louisville, Duke, Carolina, Kansas, UConn's got to be in that conversation.
It has to be.
They won their first title in 1999. They've got, what was it, 4 now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. And that win in 2014 was just an absolute shock to the world because what were they, a 9 seed?
Yeah, well, look at 2 years prior to that.
2 years prior, yeah, they won, and
They come out of nowhere. UConn won as a 7 seed, I believe it was, in 2014.
Kevin Ollie's first year.
It's the second year. It's his first year eligible for the
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you got North Carolina Tar Heels winning it all this year.
Yeah, 2-1. But like I said, no, when I talked about upsets, I did forget to mention UConn. Because it seems like every 2 years UConn gets one of those magical runs. And I don't know if you watched that game against Cincinnati, but when you hit a full-court three-point shot with 8/10 of a second left, you're on one of those runs.
Before we go here, I want to know what you feel like is going to be the biggest upset in the tournament. A team that's just going to fall and it's just going to shock the world.
Team that's going to shock the world.
Yeah, just by falling off the map. I mean, they're going to be playing, and then all of a sudden, they're gone. No longer in the tournament.
I can't believe Syracuse got in either, by the way. Throw that out there.
That's a definite shocker.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't have the resume to get in. I don't know if they showed ACC bias or what. But
Syracuse, they were without their coach, though, for 9 games, Jim Boeheim.
Yeah. But we've got to think when they hit that stretch there at the end, Louisville obliterated them. North Carolina beat them. All the teams beat them at the end stretch. And they had Jim beat them. But, you mentioned Rick Pitino earlier, too, about Louisville. I think one sure sign that he's staying is he hired David Padgett 2 weeks ago as a full-time assistant coach. And today he hired Kenny Johnson as his associate head coach and gave him a raise. I don't think you do that if you're losing.
No, I don't. But, I heard there was rumors that Rick Pitino was interested in hiring his former player. I asked you about this the other day, Travis Ford. Have you heard that rumor?
I've heard that rumor, and I could see that because he needs someone with head coaching experience because, as I said earlier, he's going to be suspended. And I made a comment about Kentucky earlier, too, when I say they get to the Final Four and then flame out. That was kind of a joke jab at you. Kentucky's pretty good, and they're ready to win another national title. I want to point that out. I don't want to sound like Louisville fans say, hey, Kentucky sucks. Kentucky could very well win the national title.
Right. I'm not going to be shocked. And as a fan, I would love to see that. But it's, just speaking as a college basketball analyst, you have to, it's not going to be a shock if Kentucky wins it all. It's absolutely not going to be a shock.
No, it ain't no shock me at all.
No, I do
think they're deserving of the 4 seed. I heard a lot of people complaining about that. I do think that was legit.
Well, I have to disagree with you. I don't think that Texas A&M should have got a 3 and Kentucky got a 4. I don't see the logic behind that because Kentucky beat Texas A&M in the SEC tournament, and they pretty much had the same type of schedule all year.
Yeah, well, A&M had a few better wins and not as bad a loss, but I'm not saying A&M deserved the 3 seed. I'm just, I don't think it didn't come down to Kentucky versus A&M eventually, but you got Kentucky lost to Ohio State, they lost to Auburn, they lost to Tennessee. Those 2 losses right there, I think, is what kept them from being a 3 seed. Actually, I think if you win either one of those games, you're probably a 3 seed. But I just don't think you can lose both of them. They lost to 3 teams with losing records. Who was the 3rd team? Auburn and Tennessee. And I don't know who the other one was. But sometimes you look at the losses, and I just don't see how the losses could. I thought there was a 4. What I thought it was, so I didn't see the upheaval about it.
It would have been nice because that means that they would have switched places there, and Kentucky would have been in the West, and they would have been playing teams like Texas and Oklahoma and Duke. I would have much rather been in that bracket than playing Indiana and North Carolina.
Well, Louisville would have been the 4 where Duke sat had they been in the tournament.
Oh, okay. That's a good thought there. I wonder where Louisville would have been placed in this tournament.
Duke got their seed. Duke should have been a 5.
So then again, you would have seen a Kentucky Louisville matchup if Kentucky would have replaced Texas A&M.
I actually think if Kentucky had been a 3 seed, that they would have been in the South. I think you could justify letting them play in Louisville had they been a 3 seed. I don't think you can give a 4 seed at home. So I think Kentucky had been a 3. They'd been up there where Miami was. In which case, Miami would have probably switched down to the west, or possibly over to the Midwest. It would have been, if Louisville SMU was in, a lot of things would have been different.
I have to agree with you. I do have to agree with you.
I get your argument, Kentucky versus A&M, but if you take the A&M factor out of it, I think it's about right.
Well, Ron, I want to thank you for joining me on this special edition episode of Off the Cuff discussing March Madness. Look forward to speaking with you even more as the tournament goes on. I'd love to have you on some more of our episodes that we'll be having to discuss more college basketball, and I would love for you to join us.
Oh, sounds good. I'll be in studio for the Selection Sunday next year. I was not able to make it this year, but I will be down next time.
Definitely look forward to having you in studio. Well, Ron, have yourself a good night, and thanks for joining us.
I appreciate you having me. We just shot, I didn't plan anything. I had the bracket in hand, so I may have stuttered and backtracked myself a few times, but I apologize. But thanks for having me on.
No problem at all. This is Off the Cuff, so that's what it's all about. Have a good night.
Yep, you too.
See you, Ron. All right, Ron Mullins joining us via the telephone to discuss the brackets. Well, March Madness continues, and we will see more playing games tomorrow, but the real games start Thursday, and we look forward to covering it here on Off the Cuff. And we'll be back in studio. Chad Rainwater will be back in studio with me to discuss rounds 1 and 2 and to preview the Sweet 16. And he's the only one that's confirmed that he'll be in studio. So we might have another co-host or two joining us along with Chad. We might have the whole panel back from the Selection Sunday show, Jordan and Zach and Chad. We'll just have to see. But again, thanks to Ryan Mullins for joining us via the telephone on the March Madness Eve podcast. But ladies and gentlemen, I am Adam Banks. Thank you for listening to the show, and we'll see you in the next episode.